Well, what you think? You're on television now.
I'm gonna give it back to my father. Like D left it. He wanted it.
Mike did, right?
Yeah, so Z.
It's like
I mean, she was so excited.
isn't that good?
Don't be sure. I know we're a lot of
That's good. Yeah. Okay.
There's not much to it.
Teeth break.
Well, good morning, gentlemen. We've got about a minute left, so somebody needs to make sure that we have a sign-in sheet. Two sign-in sheets. Thank you, sir. Well done. I appreciate that. Everybody needs to make sure that they have their book. If you don't have your book with you, you need to go and get your book. And I'm assuming there's other folks that are still coming, not late though, just getting in here. A couple of housekeeping things real quickly. I will be over to North here after a while to do a little bit of walking through and paperwork and stuff over there. But when you leave the room, I did a little walk through this morning. Room's looking good over here. The only issue that I can see is that the lights get left on. When you leave your room, cut the lights off. Somebody has to pay for that electricity that we're using, and we want to use all of our money for treatment to help people. So cut the lights off as you leave. I guess everybody by now ought to know that I used to work for the prison system, and that was one of the big things. Cut the lights off. Same thing in the military. I was in the military a long time. Cut the lights off. Those the price, the cost for the electricity for the TDCJ is in the millions. But they have a lot of stuff, and so as you leave the room, ours is not quite that high, but just cut your lights off. That's for north and for south. So it's just a good thing to do. This week we're going to be talking. It's Monday morning. Happy Monday to everyone. I'm hoping that everyone had a really good weekend. I had a fairly good weekend, had a profitable weekend, got to cut my grass and do some things like that. Church was good yesterday, and all of that kinds of stuff. So, it was pretty good. We may be cutting the meeting today short just a little bit, maybe 5 minutes or so, because I have a meeting to attend, and so we're not gonna miss anything, but we may cut it down a little bit today. Here's the deal. Today, we start on a brand new day and a brand new week, and each week has something different that we're looking at. This week we're going to be looking at. I really don't like to. They have it over. We've got a thing that announces people coming in the door here at South like they do over at North. They've had that forever. And when you open the door at North and you step inside, it says it right in your ear. Oh, the door is open. I know. I'm the one who just came through it. I got to go see my ear doctor because this girl is screaming in the. So, but anyway, it lets us know, right? And that's what it's about. It's a little bit more secure, so that's good. This week we're going to be looking at mental issues, not codependency, co-occurring things and stuff like that. We're going to be looking at our emotional health. Where are your emotions held? Where are your emotions housed? I knew, we've taught that, and I was sure somebody would know my emotions are in my limbic system as well. That's where your emotions are housed, and that's where they come from. And so they're the ones that's going to tell us we're going to die if we don't what? Yeah, all sorts of things. We're going to die if we don't breathe. We're going to die if our heart doesn't beat. We're going to die if we don't eat. We're going to die if we don't have sex. We're going to die if we're not treated well. We're going to die if we don't do this, we don't do that. We're going to die. So our limbic system is always pretty much telling us stories, but it's also telling us the truth, isn't it? If you don't eat, you will eventually croak, right? If you don't drink water, you will die from thirst, right? If you don't breathe, you're going to die pretty quickly. Is that correct? When we don't do what we're supposed to do, then those things don't work out for us. Here's the other thing. Sometimes our limbic system lies to us. This is what we need to get hold of. If nobody loves you, you're going to die from that? Not right away. Now, if we get lonely and we get depressed and we could commit suicide. There are some things there that can happen to us, but just being lonely is not going to kill us. Have you ever been lonely? I have. I've been lonely. I remember my first days in the military after I'd gotten through basic training and all of that stuff, and they said, okay, you're going to Vietnam. I said, oh, that's wonderful. That's fantastic. Let's go kill some people. Come on. And so they put me on an airplane, and guess where the airplane landed? Frankfurt, Germany. I landed in Frankfurt, Germany. There I am, ready to kill people. And they pushed me out. They said, you can't kill people here in Germany. That doesn't, So they put me in a room, and this room was probably, I don't know, 10 times as big as this. It was huge. I'm the only guy in there. The only guy in there. And I remember laying in my bunk in that room all those years ago, and I was one of the loneliest people on the face of the earth. I mean, oh my God. I'd already been scared to death, and I had a lot of people say, I ain't scared enough. Yeah, you are. Yes, you are. When they tell you, look, we're going to drop you off in Bing Dong, and people going to be shooting at you when you get off the airplane. So what you're supposed to do is shoot back. Those guys, when they come off the end of that airplane, their eyes are that big, scared to death. Yes, you are. So those kinds of things can do it. So this week, we're going to be looking at our emotions, how they affect us, how they affect our recovery, and all of that kind of stuff. So where we're going to be this morning? We're going to start on page 21. David, you're going to start on page 21 with us. Thanks, sir. So we're going to get right there. So what's our goal for the group? And this is a goal for both groups. So what's our goal for the group today? Learn a little something about emotion. How many people here have emotion? Everybody. Yeah, we all have emotions. Sometimes we try to deny those emotions, all of that kind of stuff. So if we're on day 1 over here, which we are, this is Monday, it says, look, we're at a place where when we're at the very lowest thing, and this doesn't mean that you're at this level, you can be at any level on this thing, but a lot of people starting out trying to deal with their emotions are starting out right here at this one place. So it says, look, denial or avoidance. We can, look, not only can we deny the fact that we have drug and alcohol problems. How many people, and I try to stop saying that, but I can't. What do you think the biggest problem in recovery is for us?
Denial.
Thank you, sir. Denial. Denial is the biggest problem. We do have problems with alcohol. We do have problems with drugs and alcohol. But the fact that we have those problems, a lot of the time, we don't get the right amount of treatment or anything because we're in denial. I've had so many people, they come in and sit down, and I'm doing an assessment on them, and they say, well, I don't have a problem. Okay, what are you doing here? My mama sent me. The police sent me. My probation officer or the judge or somebody else sent me, but I don't have a problem with drugs or alcohol. Yeah, and then when you get to the end of that thing, you say, well, you got a problem with drugs. There's some issues here. But we don't only deny that. A lot of times we're going to deny the fact that we have any emotional issues. Because, a lot of the time, what does that denote? Somebody says you have an emotional issue. What does that say to us? Some of the times it says you're weak. Right? And if I have an emotional problem, am I weak? No. What am I? I do maybe have some denial. I also am a human being. Human beings can easily fall into some emotional issues. What will you think might be an emotional issue? What if I'm depressed? Anger could be one. If I'm living in anger, that could be an emotional issue. If I have depression, that could be an emotional issue. Stress can cause those emotional issues. If my wife has high anxiety, is that an emotional issue? Absolutely. Absolutely. I told you all about my high dollar truck that she just bought. And she bought $2,000 worth of mirrors. And she went to put those things on. Guess what? They won't fit. There are no mirrors made for that truck. The wiring harness inside won't fit. So those guys over there called, and Ford Motor Company told them we didn't do that. There is no way to put those mirrors on that truck. Her anxiety went up here. And she's just freaking out. She's trying to trade the truck in and buy a 250, which comes with the mirrors on it that she wants. But, way too expensive. no way, can't afford all of that. So her anxiety went through the roof. So I told her I have a set of mirrors. I'm going to see if they'll fit. Before I could check them, she had already bought some that are made for that truck. Or she's got to have those mirrors. So okay, all right, we're going to put those mirrors on. Those mirrors cost $2,000, but not the one she bought. The one that she bought before. The one that wouldn't fit. But Ford Motor Company did us a good deal. They're going to give those back to us. But had they put them on, they gave us all the paperwork and things. Had they got them on there and got it all done and everything and put the new wiring on, it was going to be $4,444. 4,444 to put two mirrors on your truck. I'm going, look. So basically, I'm working for nothing. But there is a God, and praise God that they wouldn't fit, so they're going to give us all. They're going to give us all our money back. I didn't tell her that. I told her I am so sad. I am so sorry. So what did I do? Lied like a dog. I'm going over. Anyway, we have some that while you have been told or have some self-realization that emotional health is suffering in your life, you have not taken steps to address the concerns or make improvement, or possibly have denied the existence of any problem. People do that all the time. People do that all the time. I have people sitting in my office that I know have some depressive issues. They're sitting there crying. What are you crying about? I don't know. My wife will do that from time to time. I say, okay, what are you crying for? I don't know. Okay. Sometimes, and I hear this a lot of times from folks, sometimes it's healthy to have a nice, good cry. Is it healthy? Some people say it is. Some people say so. I'm going to tell you what, I don't cry unless I have a reason. I cry, I know how to do that, but I don't do that unless I have a good reason. Like when my wife buys mirrors that cost $2,000, I might cry. When we have somebody that passes away in the group or is choking to death in the group, if you choke to death in the group, I want you to know I probably will shed a tear. Mostly because that's going to be way disruptive to the group. The whole group, and when break time comes, we will remove your body, but not until break time. Okay. So we're just doing it the right way. Yeah. So look. I know that in North you can't really see the picture, and that it is a shame. I tell y'all every time I'm thinking about buying me a pickup truck, a little used old pickup truck, so that when I get through over here, I can just throw this thing in the back of the truck and run it over there. Maybe a van, because we wouldn't want it to get, rained on or anything. What do y'all think this is? Sorry, all that stuff's in this one. A distorted person?
Like stuck between Yeah,
if you take a look, this is a guy, a girl. I'm not ever sure, whether it's a guy or a girl. And this one is, you can't really tell. There's no Adam's eye. Maybe it's a lady. I'm not sure. But you'll notice that there's no trees really. There are a lot of twigs. These things are trees that have died. It's indicating that she's in a pretty bad place mentally. She's not thinking well. She's probably depressive or something like that, has some anxiety going on or something crazy is happening in her life. You'll notice all the birds that are flying in her world are blackbirds. To continue to talk about that in that place, And what is this? It's a very poorly drawn pterodactyl or some kind of bird of prey or something like that. So the birds, she's looking around and thinking that the birds are probably carnivorous and going to come eat her grain. All of that probably is not true, but that's how she sees the world right now, right? And when you see the world that way, what happens? You get depressed, and you get farther depressed, and you get into some anxiety, and you get into all of those kinds of things, and you become maybe a victim. Everybody hates me, nobody loves me. I might as well go eat worms, or drink alcohol, or use my drug. Or when I get to this place, I'm in a pretty what pretty bad place where I can relapse fairly easily, right? My emotions have me in a pretty nasty spot. So what's the deal? What do I need to do? I need to, I need to change. I need to change my thought patterns. I need to do something about it. When I know that there's an issue, and here's the first thing we talked about, denial. I need to get to the place where I know what my emotions are saying to me. I need to know that, look, I've got this issue. If no one else can see the issue, that's okay. But I need to know that I have an issue, right? I need to recognize it in myself. The first person that I begin to deny it to is me. And then when somebody else can see it, because a lot of the times other people can see my issue before I can see my issue. And when they come to tell me I have this issue, I'm already in denial in myself, so I'll deny it to them. You need to lose weight. No, I'm not fat. You're 5'3" and you weigh 400 pounds, so maybe you do need to lose a little weight. So they can see it before I can see it, right? And a lot of times people will come and say, look, you appear to be a little bit depressed, right? Or you're a little anxious about these things. You need to deal with that. Sometimes it's clinical. If it's clinical, what happens? I need some medication, perhaps. There's good meds out there now to help you with clinical depression and clinical anxiety and stuff like that. And there's no shame in the world in getting on the proper medication to help you with those emotional issues. But the other thing is that there's good talk therapy, and there's also things I can do for myself. Last week we talked about physical health. If you are in a depressive mood, is it good to exercise?
Yes.
Yes. Exercise will help you get out of that a whole lot of the times. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Can I go to my room?
Please.
No.
Please do. Sometimes that's all it takes. Maybe they need a hammer. There's somebody trying to get in, they don't have a hammer. So I don't know what we're going to do. So I bet they'll figure out that door doesn't open. They'll go to one that does. So that's just one of those life things. I hope they don't get really depressed because they can't get in. Yeah, I would feel really bad about that. So there's some things we need to look at. Look, we have some things called irrational thoughts. What does irrational thoughts mean?
Not thinking straight.
Can't think straight. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Not thinking straight. Say it again. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And here that's the word irrational. It means it's not rational. Rational means it makes sense. And if it's irrational, it don't make sense. This person is thinking that a pterodactyl is after her. How likely is a pterodactyl to get you today? It's Monday. It's Monday. And we all know that pterodactyls do not attack on Mondays, right? That's just the way it is. So how many pterodactyls are left in the world? None. None that are alive running around trying to eat people. So that's pretty much an irrational thought, isn't it? Right. It's not rational to believe I can't go to the store because there's a pterodactyl going to eat me. I used to have a lady that worked for me, and she was deathly afraid of birds. And we worked at the guest unit. She worked for me. And at the guest unit, it's a big old square. And right in the center of it is where you walk and all that. It's a pretty big area. And those guys would go by and throw bread out from the mess hall, and there was millions of birds out there. That was a real challenge for that lady to leave the office and get to her car, right? Because as you start walking, birds start flying, right? And she would scream and yell and take off running. What is the one thing you don't do in a prison? Scream and yell and take off running. Because every time she did that, the officers would respond. So there are some irrational things, and they're also called what? Cognitive distortions. What is cognitive is what? My thinking patterns, the way that I think. And so cognitively, if it's distorted, that means it's not right. Something is wrong. So usually, not all the time, because sometimes it's clinical, but usually when I'm thinking wrong, or when I'm depressed, or when I'm anxious, or when something else like that is going on, I'm usually having some distorted thinking. Right? I'm usually causing my own issue. And it's important for us to know that, because if I'm causing my own issue, what can I do? I can treat it myself. I can deal with it if I'm causing my own issue. Now, if it's not clinical, then we may be doing that. I may have myself in a place where I don't necessarily need to be. Right? So here's some things. We're going to look at some cognitive distortions real quickly. Now, here's the deal. Cognitive distortions are irrational thoughts. So a cognitive distortion is an irrational thought. So I can say it either way. If I say irrational thought, that means there's a cognitive distortion going on in my brain. Or if I say, there's some cognitive distortion going on over here, that means I'm having some irrational thought. Right? So I need to know that. I can't ever stay sober. Is that rational or irrational? That's irrational. Here's the deal. If Darnell can do it, I can do it. If anybody else can do it, and thousands and thousands and thousands of people have done it, using different techniques, and some things don't work for some people, that'll work for other people, but whatever works for me, and I can do it. And so the only one really looking at me and saying I can never do it, usually me. I know I can do it, and I know you can do it because I did it, right? So we can do it. Just look. Cognitive distortions or irrational thoughts that shape how you see the world. See, this is how she sees the world. All the trees are dead. Are they really? No, I look out here, I see green trees. Yeah. Only in her mind. Only in her mind. Y'all remember that old group, The Doors? I want the world to be black. I want all colors to go away. I see a red door, and I want to paint it black. I see the girls walk by in their summer clothes. I want them to be black. Say it again?
That's the Rolling Stones.
That's the Rolling Stones?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, I see. Never mind. I'm sorry.
What's he talking about?
I'll give you the art. He said, "Door."
Yeah.
Jim Morris.
Jim Morris.
Oh. But anyway.
What's the name of that song? Want to paint it black? What's the name of that song?
Sorry.
Slayer had a song called Painted Black.
Who?
Slayer.
Never heard of it.
Hey, another. He's talking about his and he was from somewhere over there.
Well, see, that was the Rolling Stone.
It was.
It was. We got to let him be right for one or two things. Yeah. So the Rolling Stones wrote that, but you know they were at that place where you know uh, they had some cognitive distortion. All right, that's it.
Oh, yeah. So it was the Rolling Stones.
It was the Rolling Stones.
Oh, okay.
That song was on.
No colors anymore. I want them to turn black. So here's the deal. That's just talking about someone who has an issue with cognitive distortion, correct? That whole song, they made $1,212,000 off that song, and it's just about somebody being sick. So here's the deal. There's a few things that we need to know about it. It's normal to have those kinds of thoughts every now and then. Sometimes, last night before I went to bed, I made some peanut butter with some syrup and ate it with crackers. Man, that was good. That was good. Then my wife said, "Boy, I'd like some popcorn." So of course we ate a big old tub of popcorn, and so that I love it, but it's not good for me. It's a whole lot of carbohydrates, and it just made me sick like dog. And I woke up this morning and I said to myself, "I'm sick like dog." And so I was a little bit depressed because so it's okay for us to think that way every now and then, right? Every now and then we're going to have a bad day, and I really like that terminology, and I use it all of the time. I don't use it all the time, but I use it a lot. Everyone is what? Everyone has the right to have a bad day. Right? So when somebody comes up and says something nasty, ugly, or stinky to me, that's the terminology I use in my brain. Everybody has the right to have a bad day. Now, when I come in tomorrow, I expect you, this ain't your day. You don't have a day every day. If you do, we need to get the help that you need. So here's the deal. It's normal to have those thoughts occasionally, but they can be harmful if they stick with you all the time. They don't need to be sticking with you all the time. So if those thoughts are there, we need to get rid of them. Here's some of the ones that we do a bunch. One of them is magnification and minimization. What does that mean? Say it again. What did you say way back?
What did you say?
Magnification and minimization.
Like look into magnification as in like look into better ways to be better.
That's what we ought to be doing. But and here, what I think this means is sometimes we magnify stuff, we make it bigger than what it is.
Yeah.
Somebody comes up and says, "Hey, get out of my way," and they keep walking, and you say, "That man hates me." They just want me to be in trouble. They want me to be dying. They want me to, they want me to leave. They want me to croak and all of that kind of stuff. They just hate me and all of this, and that's just not true. You were just in the way. Now, should they speak to you that way?
No.
No. They should say, "Excuse me, you leaving? What's out there? Oh, okay. All right. Make sure you need to get those. All right. So exaggerating is what magnification is. I'm going to exaggerate the situation. I have had my boss called me when I was out of the prison. My boss's office was about a half a mile away across that parade ground and all that stuff. Called me up and said, "I need you to come to my office." Okay. Right now. Okay. And then hang up. I got to walk half a mile to get to her office. And I'm thinking, what? So I'm magnifying everything. What happened? What did I do? What's going on? It's just, it could be horrible. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to lose my job. At the very least, I'm going to get written up. What did I do to get written up, I'm magnifying the situation all the way over there. What's that called? Magnification. It's also called awfulization. Awfulizing. That's a good word.
I thought you should say
Catastrophizing. Yeah, that's everything's a catastrophe. Everything's going to work out awful. It's going to be horrible, terrible, nasty. So it actually happened to me. I walked all the way over there. When I got there, this lady, name was Miss Weatherly, and she's brilliant. She's a brilliant person, brilliant therapist. And she had a big pile of paper all over her desk. I mean, it was up like this. I mean, she was right in the middle of all of this stuff, busy like crazy, which was why she was short with me. You know, she was just going. And when she came over there, when I walked over to her desk, I said, "Yes, ma'am, here I am. What is it that she rolled a piece of paper over there like that to me and said, read that." So, here it comes. Here it comes. So I read it, and I immediately noticed I didn't do this. I didn't write this. This is not about me at all. This is nothing. And so I read the sentence, and I said, that doesn't make much sense. And she said, no, it doesn't. So the next time that you train these guys on how to do a better, more outlined sentence so it can be read. And this I'm going to have to send back. So incorporate that into your training if you don't mind. And then she just went back. Nothing. It's nothing. It was nothing. You know, so I walked out of there, and on the way out, I had to go to the bathroom. You know, I had just worked that all up to something that it wasn't, so I was magnifying. Right? So the other thing is minimizing. When do we minimize?
usually when something bad is, well, it's
Not as bad as I think that might be. I think that might be a little bit healthy. That might be helpful. But how about if you work all day long and then you say, "Well, I didn't get much done." You're minimizing things. If I tell myself I can have just one,
yeah.
if I tell myself I can have just one cookie, and I could have just one cookie.
But if you're like doing something bad, addiction or something,
Yeah.
you think, well, it's not as bad as it is. It really is. You think,
Right,
so
right.
thinking, oh,
Absolutely. That's minimizing and saying, look, I know I'm doing this and it's not the right thing to do, but I don't do it as much as David does.
Yeah.
He does it all the time. I just do it every night. That's minimization. Well, certainly you have to do that in every group. Have you noticed? Have you noticed that every group, you get about halfway through the first part of the group, and you have to go to the bathroom? So every time.
Can I use the restroom?
Sure. I mean, that's your pattern. We'll wait on you. And here's the deal I'm going to share with you. It's not okay to go to the bathroom in group. We have time to go before group, and we're about to have a break here in about 20 minutes, and we can go use the bathroom at that point in time. I'm 72 years old. I go to the bathroom 414 times a day. But for this 2 hours, I can hold it. So it's not okay. We need to get to the place where we can deal with that. So here's the deal. Magnification and minimization is exaggerating or minimizing the importance of events, things that happen. You might believe your own achievements are unimportant, or that your mistakes are excessively important. How many people make mistakes? Everybody. What's the important thing about mistakes?
Learn from it.
You learn from them, and you accept them, and you let it be known. If I make a mistake, if I screw up, I'm going to go tell my boss. Or tell my wife. If I'm at home, if I break something or something, I'm going to go tell them. I was at church the other day, and church members bought me a coffee cup. And they had a plate in the drainer, and it's a big old heavy plate. And I was rinsing out my cup, and as I was putting it in the drain, I went by and just hit that plate, and it chipped my cup. I said, man, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm still using it, but yeah, you got to look at that and say, oh my God. But I let everybody know, that's what happened. And you're right, you said catastrophizing. Catastrophizing means seeing only the worst possible outcomes in a situation. It's like that when somebody says, hey, you know what, your brother's in the hospital.
You just think the worst.
Yeah. Call the family together. Bubba's in the hospital. Y'all call mama. Call the family together. He's in the hospital. He hadn't. I know. I went over to his house the other day. He wasn't looking good. He's probably dying. He may have cancer. Or there's something. And so you rush to the hospital, and he's in there with a splinter in his finger, and they're pulling it out. We catastrophize. We need to not be doing that. What do we need to do?
Just hope for the best.
Well, hoping for the best, that's a good plan, too.
Just be positive, be pragmatic.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah, check it out.
Assess.
Yeah, assess the situation. There are some things that are catastrophes, right? There's old boy went into a bar over there in Houston somewhere and shot a bunch of people. He killed 6 people, and there's 6 other people who were wounded up, fighting for their life right now. That's a catastrophe. And if somebody calls me and says, hey, somebody shot your wife down at Walmart, first thing I do is, what an embarrassment to die in Walmart. Second thing is, how's she doing? Yeah. Third thing, maybe, where's the truck? Is the truck okay? I need a ride to come get the truck. Yeah, all of those things. But that would be a catastrophe. But what we need to do first, it's like you said, check it out. I need to find out what actually happened. A lot of the time, what I think happened is always going to be worse than what actually happened. Most of the time, it works out that way. That's not necessarily true, but most of the time it is. I remember in college when we used to have to take tests. I'm pretty good at taking tests, but sometimes, they say, okay, today we're going to have a test. And sometimes you didn't know. It's not like high school where they have they drop a little thing on you. But in college, today we're going to have a test over this. What? I haven't studied for the test, where you're supposed to be studying the material. You're supposed to know this material by now, so a test shouldn't scare you. Oh, yeah, well, what's supposed to happen and what actually happened, this is a catastrophe. Okay. But usually I could get through the test pretty well because I did pay attention and I did not sleep in class and I did know what was going on. I did pretty well. But I'd still catastrophize. Especially when we were doing statistics. That's the bane of my existence. That's the thing that brought my GPA off of 4.0. Statistics.
You became a statistic.
I became a statistic. All right, how about overgeneralization? Go ahead with that.
I'm just going to ask you real quick. It seems like, be catastrophized.
Yeah.
But also, like, at least in my personal experience, if something good is going to happen too, this might match what I have.
No, that too. Yeah. It says sometimes if I'm not catastrophizing, but sometimes the thing that I think is going to be good doesn't quite work out the way that it was supposed to. Y'all know somebody won that $1 billion thing. Yeah.
Somebody won $1 billion?
What's funny is somebody, I heard this morning, somebody who won it, but they're only going to take home like $200 million. I mean, $200 million is still a lot of money, but what happened to the other,
all of it?
$800 million, $1 billion, what happened?
Well, the guy that won it actually took home a little bit more than that. They're taking home, there's two, I think there's 2 people that hit the number, and they're taking home 400 and something million.
Yeah, but when you split it in half, it's
Yeah.
200
So, You know, I won the lottery. I will tell you, not this one, but I did win the lottery back about 5 years ago. I'm actually a lottery winner. Yeah. But I figured out you can't live long on $3. You know, so so I quit buying lottery tickets and all of that kind of stuff. But the deal is, that was the point that I was making. He said sometimes you don't think I just won $1.7 billion, but here you go. Here's $400,000. Wait a minute.
Not do the rest.
Wait a minute. Well, the government takes that. The government got that. And they said, look, we're going to take that stuff here in Texas, and we're going to use that stuff to improve your schools. And the school's been going downhill every year forever, and so that hasn't improved the schools at all. And the schools are falling apart and all of that stuff. Yeah. So anyway, overgeneralization, making broad interpretations from a single or a few events. I have a relapse 5 times. I'm never going to be able to stay sober. I'm absolutely sure I will relapse this time. Is that a truism? No, we don't have to relapse. Relapse is a personal choice. Now, of course, we have a disease that's pushing us toward that. Most of the time, we have friends that are pushing us towards that. I tell people all the time, you can't go back to old people, places, and things. I saw a person get in a car with a guy the other day that absolutely, gang member, had gang insignia all over him. And so this guy's got about how much of a chance of staying in recovery? Yeah, 0. Probably relapse before he got out to where that car is. So, overgeneralization.
The first time I got out here, we had this little sidewalk out the door. The first thing I went and bought was alcohol.
When we used
First
to,
thing I went and
absolutely. He said when he got out the first time, the first thing he did was go get alcohol. When
bought.
we
I
used
went out
to,
10 minutes.
yeah, 10 minutes. We used to let these guys out at the holiday unit when we were in the prison. They throw their Bibles and their Qurans away, and they got $50 apiece when they left. And there's a little convenience store right down the road. It's actually about a mile. And they would walk to that convenience store, and they would buy a 6-pack of those little ponies. Almost everyone would do that. And they would get on the bus. They caught a bus right there is why we sent them up there. They'd get on the bus with their 6-pack of ponies. So they relapsed before they ever got off of the prison ground. So, we're overgeneralized. But that doesn't have to happen to you. Relapse is a fact of life. It is part of recovery, but it's also not okay. So it doesn't have to happen. So here's the deal. It says, look, I felt awkward doing my job interview. You ever felt awkward doing a job interview? I have. I went into some places and I knew that I'm never going to get this job. Not gonna be able to do it. Felt real awkward being in there because and this is something people ought to. The warden. I went to another prison and I was doing an interview to become the director of the program there. And there was a lady that went there as well. The warden came out of his office and hugged the lady. How you doing? Hadn't seen him. Okay. Didn't hug me. Didn't know me. All right. So they went in and the HR lady came out, got her in there, and went in and okay. So then when it was my turn, the HR lady came out and said, "Your name." So okay. I'm just here, out of obligation. I'm just here because they have to do it. I went in and sat down, and 10 minutes later, I knew. So I walked out and congratulated the chick. Yeah, but I felt pretty awkward in that situation. But here's what happens. We go in, and we feel awkward, and it says, I'm always feel awkward. Is that true? It's overgeneralization. No, I don't always feel awkward. when I came to get this job, I didn't feel awkward. I felt great. When I went to several other jobs, I didn't feel awkward. I didn't feel bad. I knew that, hey, I have just as much of a chance to get that job as anybody else. Qualified. I'm really good looking. Yeah, and well spoken, and everybody likes me. Everybody loves me. They won't feed me worms, and I don't feel awkward. Here's the deal: if I do feel awkward at this place, I'm going to do my level best anyway, and then get through that. That other lady, the one that got the job, could have got killed on the way home, and they need a second. And here I am. So, or they could change their mind. There's all sorts. You ever been to a job interview and they call you up and say, "Do you still want that job?" And you say, "No." When I went to work for the prison out there, it took them, they vet people really well. It took them 3 months before they ever called me, offered me the job. Three months. The lady called and she asked a really pertinent question. She said, "Dr. Garner, do you still want this job?" I said, "That's a good question, man. It's been 3 months. I'm working somewhere else now. There's 30 people want me to go to work for them because they have these licenses. And so, I'm working." And she said, "Well, it takes this." I said, "No, it doesn't. I went to work for these people. It didn't take but 30 minutes for them. They'd say, 'Hey, you got the license? Yeah. Can you spell your own name?' Yeah, you go, okay." Yeah, So, yeah, take your pulse and lead you to your office and set you down. So overgeneralization. Because something happens one time does not mean it's going to happen every time in your life. Right? So, I've had people tell me, well, every job I've ever had, I got fired off of it. Have y'all ever been fired? I've been fired. I've been let go, walked off the job. I've done that. As I think back in my mind, probably twice. Not that whole. So it doesn't always happen. If you're always getting fired, what should you do?
Did something.
You ain't doing something right. Okay, you may not have that job 30 minutes from now, but look, you're not. If you're getting fired from every job you've ever gone on, you're not doing something right. Maybe you ought to think about, I might need to change something. Either my attitude stinks, I really can't do the job. You ever had anybody that came to work for you or around you who really couldn't do the job? Oh yeah, we had a lady came to our church and said she wanted to be our piano player. Told this story before, but I don't know if she wanted to be our piano player, and we needed a piano player. We said, "Okay, let's hear you play." She said, "Well, I'm really not ready right now." Well, that was a red flag, Okay. So come back on this day. Okay. So she came back on that day and said, "Okay, let's hear you play." She said, "I've hurt my finger, and I really can't do it. But look, I'll be here on Sunday morning, and if y'all enjoy my playing on Sunday morning, then you can hire me as a piano player." Okay. And so she came on Sunday morning, and look, this actually happened. People have thought me less than truthful. But she came in on Sunday morning. She was dressed to the nines. She looked well. She went up to the piano. She sat down in front of the piano, and we're all waiting. She sat there a few minutes, and she did whatever she did. She opened the top of it, and she got up and she walked out. That girl could not play the piano. I don't know. Something was. I couldn't look in, but if you look in her ear, you'd be able to find something loose in here. Yeah. She wanted to be, and so I'm thinking, go learn to play the piano. But that takes years. And so she wasn't willing to. Overgeneralization. And we need to look at that. Because it happens one time, will crap happen in your life? Yeah, it will. Yeah, it will. And here's the deal. I have come to expect that can possibly happen. It's not going to happen every time. I've also come to expect that. It's not going to happen every time. I know that. But look, when it happens, I'm not going to get all freaked out about it because crap happens. Okay, it happens. But it's certainly not going to happen every time. Right? So that way, if I know that it's not going to happen every time, and I'm not worried about it if it does happen, I'm going to do my level best in every situation, and then let them make their own decision, right? I've had people come in. I used to do all the hiring and firing, several facilities that I worked at, and I have had people come in already made their mind up that they weren't going to get the job, and they helped me make up my mind that they weren't going to get the job. Sitting there in the interview, I've had people say, "Well, you're not going to hire me, are you?" Oh no, no, not yeah. If you came in here for a professional job and you're in blue jeans and a tattered T-shirt, and, got your hat on backwards like that, which is very disrespectful. You come and sit down in my office and first thing, well, you're not going to hire somebody like me, are you? No. You're brilliant. So sorry we can't hire you because somebody with your level of intelligence, you knew that right off. You're smart, but you need to leave now. So they helped me make up my mind. They helped me to know because they already. I don't. If you go to work to be a welder, how do you dress to go to the interview? How?
A welder.
As a welder?
I mean, I would say, like professionally, some nice pants, good work boots, nice shirt, but make sure you're clean shaved, not clean shaved, but make sure your face is good, your hair is good, to look like a professional. But when you show up to work, if you get hired, you show up in your good work clothes. Nothing that's got those holes in it. You hide all your tattoos.
Yeah, don't come to the interview wearing your welding.
Yeah,
right? Don't do that. Don't do that. Now, you can have your welding clothes out in the car in case you get hired that day. But if it's me, I'm a welder, I'm going to the interview in a three-piece suit. And people say, well, you ain't going to weld in that. No, I've got stuff to weld in, but, I'm here.
Especially in my experience, I'm in suits or anything. I just decent like this, but that backwards. But it's based on they give you a skills test. So it really was just like skills. You know what you're talking about. You know what you're doing. You're gonna get the job.
Yeah, and that's he said if you any way you dress, if you come in, you know what you're doing, then they're going to give you the job. How about if you've got two guys? One knows exactly what he's doing, and he's dressed with his hat backwards and a shirt on that says, I'm a welder, and then the other guy's got a suit on, doesn't have to be a three-piece suit, but he's dressed really nicely and all of that stuff, and y'all's skills are about the same. Who are they going to hire?
I hire the guy in the suit.
I would hire the guy with the suit on because at least he is attempting to look and do his best. So anyway, whichever one of those you ascribe to, it's okay. But overgeneralization, we are not always going to be, awkward at those places. Just because something happened this way today doesn't mean it's going to happen that way tomorrow. Right?
10 minutes from now.
Or even 10 minutes from now. One other real quickly, and then we'll be done. Magical thinking. What is that?
Magical thinking.
Thinking positive.
Thinking things are just getting
Unrealistic
better.
expectations, unrealistic timelines, or something like that.
Yeah, the thing is, thinking positive is a good thing, and it's different. The belief that the thoughts, actions, or emotions influence unrelated situations. If I hadn't hoped for something bad to happen to my boss, he would not have died in that car accident. Magical thinking. If I had not have hoped that company would shut down, all those people wouldn't have lost their job. Yes, sir.
It's kind of a bad example. Gamblers do it all the time. It's come up red 50 times in a row. It's got to come up big again.
Yeah, it's come up red 50 times in a row. So it's got to win this time. Magical thinking. I have played the lottery 80 times, never want anything. My time's coming. It's my time. Magical thinking. So look, I believe in the power of prayer. I also believe in positive thinking. I also believe that you should be um, not speaking negative self-talk over yourself. You should be speaking positive self-talk over yourself. All of that kind of stuff. I believe in all of that kind of stuff. Because I believe it's true. I see the evidence of it. However, I don't believe in magical thinking. If I don't like Miss Caitlin, I can't. She's not going to fall over dead just because I don't like her. Just because I don't like her. She may fall over dead, but I'm not going to take responsibility for it because I happen to like her. So the fact that I like her, does that mean she's going to live be an old woman?
Never know.
She's certainly not going to live be an old man. So if she lives to be old, she's gonna live be an old woman. Yeah. So magical thinking, just because I'm thinking it, doesn't mean it's going to happen. I screwed up today. I'm gonna get fired. That magical thinking. Yeah. And look, Miss Susan saw me, and she's gonna tell on me. So maybe she won't. Yeah. So magical thinking, just because I think it doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? And if I think it and it does happen, I'm not going to blame myself. Right? All right. So we're going to take our break a little bit early, but y'all come back about 15 minutes after, and we'll finish that.
But, yes, right. No, you're fine. You're fine. I need to slow down. Oh. He's like, no, that's not and then person. Yeah, Hey, Terry. I'm not but hey, we're starting the challenge that thing. Oh, that's all right. So what do you say for special? I want to say, well, you go.
Take a look at one. I swear to God, never. That's what. Hey, y'all, it's probably five guys. They probably five guys. Oh, that's good. It was good. Yeah, oh, I had to make some more sense. So you take one. And then when you score that straight one, so.
Hello, ladies. How are you doing today? I cannot hear a word you're saying, so I'm assuming y'all are doing well.
They think just walk by it.
Tell Rachel, I was asking.
Uh,
A smile on your face.
He's never. But I understand what he's saying. He's encouraging people to work.
I wanted to ask you something.
I understand where students go look for how everything works. You know,
Every person I know construction job has went dressed towards that.
yeah, that's the way I am. I wear my work clothes already. If they look at that, they're like, oh, he's ready to go to work. I already got my flip flops on, and my jeans, and my FRC shirt. My hat backwards. But then again, I'm at a point to where I don't even really got to go and do interviews anymore. These are all word of mouth. They're all wrecked in. And it's wrecked. Like recommended it. Word of mouth. Like,
I was like, well, they hiring I can deal with it.
like you get recommendations.
No.
Then you get on the list and you go man. Job, brother.
I still like
That's my
my interpretation.
But what I'm gonna be doing next for I might have to wear a suit because I'm going to be going to a set fire. I'm not going to do nothing. I'm going to be working with the automation technology. So when I go for a company, I'm going to it's job. I won't be able to dress like the guys.
I have realized how much money.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
they from and all.
For hangers, man. Working. And the people who got them are riggers. People who got them at cranes, they make money too. Yeah, that doesn't. You gotta know all your signals. You gotta know where the crane's behind you and you're leaving inside. You gotta know which way the step is right. This crazy shit. Yeah, it's not coming up. Huh? It's not coming up.
You gotta wait for it to turn red. It's still brewing.
I had it on.
I know it's brewing.
I had it plugged in.
It wasn't plugged in.
Somebody plugged it off?
She said it wasn't plugged in.
I plugged it in.
It's not lit today.
Oh,
Damn.
I plugged it
She
right in.
said, "I'm gonna get this coffee, but smartphone."
I plugged it in right away. So let the cameras.
Oh, it.
No, I didn't plug it in.
This time you did.
Somebody unplugged it.
Don't blame me.
I thought I did. I probably did. You know?
Thought you did. And that shit did.
I'll give it to you.
And I'm just not fit. Cause I looked over there, I said,
You had one job.
I could have sworn I plugged it in.
You had one job. Tom.
I'm like, I'm over here.
I'm gonna have to write you up.
that's the Richard.
He's trying to magically make the lights turn on. I was in the office there.
Clap.
Oh. Don't bet that down.
I'm probably.
You got that magical thing. Walk over there and suddenly you're done.
I was on the street. I was walking down the street.
Alright.
And there was this little dog.
He's a waste. That's a good start.
Yeah. Right. And
So what, you spent all night hitting them?
workers or what?
Yes, on 50 days.
I'm so happy. They got to turn my backs on.
That's all. That's there was a 15 day like somebody said trying to shoot the hard about everybody somehow.
Don't bet that down.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah. All that time.
In the words of Terrence, hey ladies.
You wouldn't think to. Feel like
Look at this animal.
Hey, did you leave? Right now today?
Yeah.
So every day.
This is the most involved I've ever seen.
Because he's doing he's getting
Going on there.
He's kicking rocks.
I use
Whoop, whoop.
All the questions, coming up with your words.
Not those help.
They're not coming up on those. I like that. That word. Man, that's exciting, man.
So let me go to the bathroom.
That's what it is.
Why don't you go to the basket, Ariel?
Hey,
5 minutes.
need help? Oh, used I was seeing
I like it. stay here, I'll stay. But next summer,
What it say?
say,
Oh,
say by next summer.
you just put it.
Start
You
IT.
see what? The money like, sure. Like programming or?
Air. Hacking.
Right. Once that red light comes on, I'll be ready.
Like waiting for
School program? One.
Intruder.
That's what I thought. Yeah. That's what. It's not a drum.
They probably thought we were a funeral home.
Right, bro. I'm tired.
That's your house?
Now they pull out.
Okay, it should be that they read the sign and said, "Let's get back."
Go get them, Darnell.
Or the workers.
Do the person.
Those wings.
Let me tell them who. It's Shonda.
Put it in there to clip.
Do that.
How they pull it out.
Been around the world and I
Got trophies, now.
It's your right.
I had no idea. Hopefully not back like that. Middle town.
I did.
So,
And so they just,
you don't know where it's from, and you ain't never know. Yeah. So the overall thing is same, like, go with the suit, which I sort of should.
Yeah, but so that's for the job and then also that's for the environment. So I'm saying,
But we're both doing with the suits or both in job. Even though
I'm there.
they're gonna look at the dude, suit, they're gonna get funny. Why don't come in? Three-piece suit, you don't have to dress like. But it's the overall message.
it's, yeah.
To present yourself.
She did it. So,
Some of them do. Some of them.
Me and my young boy, when he school, get out of school, put the underwater well, and that's all he wanted to do. That was good. It was
You get the red exam, and you get the red. I'm very skeptical. That they didn't do that. They didn't do written count material, and they want you to build and demo. All this building, don't. Yeah. Got to follow the first step. When it's in a certain amount of time, too. That's how it works. Ready?
Last field.
Well, see if we can get this restarted so we can get it ended. Yeah, take your time.
well, we got a lot of presentation paperwork.
When we talked about magical thinking, No such thing. We're not magic. Some of the things that we think, some things we say, they're just stuff. They're not going to happen. So we don't have to worry too much about magical thinking. If magical thinking was a thing, we'd all won the lottery, right?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know the guy personally that won the lottery, but I'm thinking of trying to find out who he is, just to get to know him a little
They
better.
don't ever reveal them.
And
They don't reveal the winners no more.
I don't.
They believe it or not, they reveal the name of the lottery winners, but in order to keep the secret, they take 20% of your earnings.
Jesus.
Yep.
20%.
20%. Yep.
So they show the Hispanic.
But you didn't even get a lawyer, you still have to pay that much anyways.
Well, we're still talking about the lottery winning guy.
They show the Hispanic lady, one of them, won.
Well, like I said, I won $3. No,
The most I've ever won is 20. So.
and nobody appears to care at all. Yeah, I mean, I won that $3, and nobody called the news people.
That's right.
Yeah, and so that kind of hurt my heart. And I said, well, okay, nobody cares. I just took the $3. So the next thing that we're going to look at real quickly is personalization. What does that mean?
Personalization.
Yeah, personalization.
Taking everything personal.
Taking everything personal. That's part of it. Yeah, do you take things personal? I do. Sometimes I try not to, but sometimes I do. One of the things I really try hard to do a good job. And everything I do, I cut the grass well. When I do something, I try to do it the best I can. I suffer from a disease called perfectionism. So that's not a good thing. You would think that being perfect, that's not what perfectionism is about. It's not about being perfect, not about doing everything the right way. It's about not letting anybody know that you're not doing it perfect. You'll lie, steal, cheat, so people can't know that you screwed that up. And that's the big deal. People can't know. And so, you'll hide things and you'll tell lies and stuff like that. So it's not good. Personalization is about taking everything personal. That's one thing, taking everything personal. But the other thing is, and 90% of the time, it's not personal. When I hear, I've had a lot of people do it, but when I have somebody come to me and say, now, look, Doc, don't take this personal. I know they're fixing to jab me. And when I'm at the church, we don't believe in gossip and stuff like that. I shouldn't do that because that's what the Bible teaches. So, that's weird. I didn't do that. I don't know what that is. Okay, sorry. Big old thing jumped up there. But I still have people come up and say, "Hey, Pastor, I don't believe in gospel and all that stuff, but I heard something I think you ought to know." So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that. But somebody said this about you. I really don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. So personalization, the belief that you are responsible for events outside of your control. There's a lot of stuff that goes on around here that ain't my fault, right? I work here. I do. I work here, and they pay me, and I'm here just about every day and all of that stuff, but I'm not in control of most of this stuff. There's stuff that goes on a daily basis. Who's in control of that? Miss Rebecca here. Miss Rebecca's in control of that. The clinical stuff, Miss Sierra's in control of that. The way the vision is going, the way that we're going as a company, Mr. Farmer's in control of that. I'm not in control of all of that kind of stuff. So if something happens here that some of the clients or some of the clients' people or somebody else doesn't like, I'm not in control of all of that. I don't take that. I don't take that personally. You know, and if somebody doesn't like treatment, guess what? I don't take that personally either. That's my job to help you do what you want to do. So I'm not going to take it personal. So personalization, the belief that you are responsible for events outside of your control. My mom is always upset. She would be fine if I did more to help her. Is that true? Could be true to some extent. Yeah, if you on some level, yeah. If you need to help your mother a little bit more, perhaps you should, and perhaps that'll help a little bit. But if your mom has a clinical problem, it's not going to help. The no amount of help that you give them is going to help. You know, there are people who are really deep into poverty, and if you give them a bunch of money, will that help? Sometimes, sometimes briefly for a period of time, and then they'll be needing some more. One of the things about back to the lottery, people who win the lottery, something like 80% of them or 90%, big number, go broke within about 5 years. They just don't know how to deal with money, never had any money, and all of a sudden they're a billionaire, and they spend it. I remember when my father-in-law, back in the day, he got a little settlement, and it wasn't a whole lot of money, but you know, he worked. He was a working man. He never had a lot of money, and all of a sudden he had this little chunk of change that showed up, and suddenly he had a new pickup truck. Pickup truck he had was good, but it wasn't a new pickup truck, so suddenly he's got a new pickup truck, got a brand new riding lawnmower, got a new boat, got no money. Spunt it all. You know what I mean? It's gone. You know, because we don't know how to deal with money. And so a lot of those folks, and I don't know, I pray for the guy that got the money, you know, that it doesn't destroy his life. I thank the Lord God. I didn't win. You know, you give me $1 billion, and I've had people tell me, I had a guy at church tell me the other day, it wouldn't change me at all.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, it would. It wouldn't change you completely. You'd probably still be a liar, but if somebody gives you a $300 or $400 million, yeah, I'm gonna go buy me a castle over in England, you know, something other. And I had a guy when it first came out back in the day, the lottery was $12 million. A lot of people there in the company where I was working, they all bought a ticket, you know. And this guy said, "Well, you know what I'm going to do? If I win the lottery, I'm going to buy me a lawnmower shop." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, if I win that $12 million, man, I'm going to buy me a lawnmower shop." I said, "Dude, you just don't understand. If I win the $12 million, I'm not going to talk to people who even have lawnmowers. Yeah, I don't want to know those people anymore. You know, so yeah, it would change me. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know." So, personalization. She might be a little bit better off, but she might not. And the people who win the money, they certainly might be better off. You know, of course, I'd pay all my bills off and all of that kind of stuff. But most of them, it just destroys them. There was a lady who won $1 million, and she changed her name to Millionaire. Yeah, she changed her name to Millionaire. And then she went to Las Vegas.
Wow.
Took her money to Las Vegas. And I've been to Las Vegas, and as the airplane is landing, the pilot always says, "Welcome to Las Vegas." You know? And so she lost every dime. She's coming back, and they're interviewing her, and she said, "Well, at least I'm still a millionaire." Because her name was, you know, what crazy people. So, you know, we all think, hey, that would be fantastic. That's what this guy at church said. He said, "Man, I would love to win it because I would help a lot of people." Yeah, that sounds good, but you know what? Most of us wouldn't. We'd go hide that, squirrel it off, and, you know, do all that kind of, it would change us a whole lot. So it might not be the blessing we think that it would be if we won all that money. So personalization. And then the next one is jumping to conclusion. You never know how high you can jump until you try, right? You never know how high until you try. So jumping to conclusions, what does that mean?
As in, like,
You're already saying the outcome of what you think is going to happen.
I know people who do that. We have some people in here. We're not going to say who they are. We're not going to say who they might be. But even if they don't know, they will tell you the answer. You know, you can start off, you have 3 words out of your mouth and well, you don't know what I'm going to ask you. But I know that. You know, if I don't know the answer, I can make something up. You know, jump into interpreting, and you said it right, interpreting the meaning of a situation with little or no evidence. I see that sometimes. We have clinical meetings.
interpreting to what? To that again?
Interpreting the meaning of a situation with little or no evidence. You know, I don't really know what they're talking about, but this is what they mean. Yeah. So just jumping to a conclusion. Part of that is mind reading. What is mind reading? Yeah. Go ahead.
Mind reading is trying to, you think what people are thinking, you already thinking
Yeah.
about it.
Y'all remember, I don't know if any of you are old enough, y'all remember the great Kreskin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kreskin, he was good. He would come on, man, he could tell you all sorts of stuff, and he was good at that. But I don't believe that he was a mind reader, but he was a real good, whatever they do. Mind reading, interpreting the thoughts and beliefs of others without adequate evidence. They don't like me. They don't care for me. She wouldn't go out on a date with me because she probably thinks I'm ugly. Well, you know, that might not be it at all. It may be that intense body odor that you have. You know, it could be anything. It could be anything like that. You know, could be like she's just busy. Could be her husband might find out. You know, there's all sorts of reasons why a lady won't go out with you. Or there's all sorts of reasons on the other end of that a guy won't go out with you. You know.
Hey, Q. Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Hey, could you close that door? Please, door, you don't know?
But that wasn't disruptive at all. I like the way you did that. That was good. Thank you. Got that door closed, didn't we? Yeah. All right. How about the next one on that same thing? Personalization is fortune telling. What's fortune telling? Anybody? Yeah, fortune telling.
Trying to predict the future.
Say it again.
Trying to predict the future.
Okay, trying to predict the future for someone. That's good. The expectation that a situation will turn out badly without adequate evidence that that's true. Can you go into a situation and it turn out badly?
Yeah.
I've had a bunch of that. Yeah. I've gone to try to get tons of jobs and not get that job. I have gone and asked a lady to go to the movies with me and stuff like, and just flat say, no. You know, I've had some situations go wrong. I've also been in the situation myself where I have fortune told that on me. You know, I'm not going to get the job. I did that one time. I drove all the way down to a place that was like 400 or 500 miles away. I don't know how far, but it was a long way. And went in there and set for the interview and all of that stuff. And when I walked out of the interview, I just kind of felt like it didn't happen. So got my wife and we just headed on back home. On the way home, the guy calls me. So where did you go? I said, well, I knew you guys had other prospects, and I didn't think that I was at the highest level on that prospect, so I just headed out. So, you know, he said, well, you didn't know that, did you? I said, no, sir, I didn't absolutely know that. You know, not at all. So I had foretold myself right out of the job because I asked him, would you like me to turn around? He said, no, don't bother. You're right, there are other prospects here. So I felt like a putface, you know, I really, that wasn't smart. So the expectation that a situation will turn out badly without adequate evidence. So I need to know if there is adequate evidence I can see it's going to turn out badly. But if I'm not seeing that, I need to make sure that I'm not doing it. How about emotional reasoning? These are all cognitive distortions that we sometimes get into. So emotional reasoning, what does that mean?
I'm trying to reason with somebody emotionally. Like,
Trying to reason with somebody emotionally? What were you going to say?
Well, basing events and actions on your emotions.
Basing the events and your actions on your emotion. The assumption that emotions reflect the way things really are. Sometimes if I'm emotional, it's not reflecting reality. I feel like a bad friend. So therefore I must be a bad friend. Not necessarily so. What's a bad friend?
Bad friend?
Yeah.
Somebody that cheats.
Somebody that cheats and steals from you. If I'm dating your girlfriend, that could be.
Talks bad about you behind your back.
Yeah, talking bad about you behind your back. Yeah, that could be. That's a bad friend. Pretending you're not home and you know that they need to borrow your car, something like that. So yeah, and they're talking all the time. My wife does that. Look, my wife likes NCIS and all of those things just because the guys are pretty on there. And when she's watching, she's kind of glued to that thing. And every now and then, like yesterday, she really wants me to watch something that I like. Because I don't get that. So that's real nice of her, isn't it? Every now and then she'll do that. And so she turned on something like the Orville. I like Orville. That's pretty good.
About the spaceship?
Yeah, about spaceship. That's pretty good sometimes. She don't like those kind of movies. So I'm trying to watch Orville, and she sits down and starts talking to me. Yeah. No. Yeah.
she expects you to give
Yeah.
her undivided attention.
Exactly.
You're like,
Trying to watch this stupid Orville thing.
hey,
Yeah.
this is my turn to watch TV.
Right.
Let me watch TV. I'm
Right.
leaving you alone. So
Yes.
leave me
Right.
alone.
Yes, but she won't do that. So the assumption that emotions reflect the way things really are, I feel like I'm a bad friend, therefore I must be a bad friend. Yeah, if I feel like I'm a bad friend, what I should do is start trying to be a better friend instead of just announcing that I'm a bad friend. Because if I'm a bad friend, what am I going to do? I'm going to do the things that bad friends do. Not going to do good stuff. So how about this one's really, I see this a lot. Disqualifying the positive. What does that mean?
Always thinking negative.
Always thinking negative.
Never.
What is it?
Pessimistic?
Being pessimistic. Yeah, recognizing only the negative aspects of any situation. Yes, sir. Can you go to the restroom? Well, yeah, I'll let you do that and then take a nap afterwards. Where did that guy go? Oh, okay. Recognizing,
What's it called again? I'm writing some of this down.
disqualifying the positive. Recognizing only the negative aspects of a situation while ignoring the positive. I do that sometimes, don't you? I do that. Like, I'm going to, I see a lot of the negative stuff, like people waiting to get back to group for 5 minutes and then decide they got to go to the bathroom. Yeah, I see all those negative things, and I'm disqualifying the positive. Of course, there ain't no positive. That's not true. Did come to group, right? So that's a positive, right? and all of those things.
I find myself doing that a lot, but it's weird. But for my, because I think it's for a good thing. If I disqualify a positive or something that I really want to happen for good, then I'll say it, man. Like, nah, like, for instance, for the Astros, watching the Astros. They're not going to make it. They lost this game. They lost this game. And then, sure, holidays will hit one out the park. And next, I prove it. And they just start hitting them out the park. And they're like, all right, we won.
I see that as two things.
Yeah, you don't think so.
I see that as magical thinking too. Yeah. You think because you do this, you think that the opposite's going to happen. Yeah. So you know, and I'm thinking if the Astros win anything, it's going to be something magical anyway. So I have nothing at all, and all of you guys that are lining up to beat me up after all, I have nothing at all against the Astros. I just don't keep up with that stuff. So disqualifying that, recognizing only the negative aspects of a situation while ignoring the positive. You might receive a whole lot of compliments on an evaluation. Something, we get evaluated around here once every 3 months or so. Somebody evaluates us and says, hey, you're doing a really good job, or you're just really doing a poor job, or why on earth are we still paying, stuff like that. But focus on a single piece of negative feedback. Have you ever done that? I did that. I do that. Speaking of those evaluations, when I first came here, I worked for Miss Valencia, and y'all know her. She's the boss over at North now, and I worked for her, and she gave me an evaluation while I was there. Worked for about 4 months over there, and she gave me a fairly good evaluation. It wasn't 100%, but it was pretty good. But the fact that it wasn't 100% is what I focused on. Yeah, I have been evaluating people forever, and I have been evaluated forever, and my evaluations are usually up here. But the one that she gave me it was okay, but it wasn't 100%. And so I focused on the fact that it wasn't 100%. And that's not something I should have done because it was a good evaluation. And a lot of the time how many of us know, we are always being evaluated. It doesn't have to be a formal evaluation. People are always evaluating. We just had a gentleman walk through here. We evaluated him as he was walking through, did we not? What did we think about him as he was walking through?
Not enough information.
Not enough information? There's a little bit. I'll bet you $100 he's a new client. Right? Not what we can't. Because like I say, it's a surface thing. But we're always evaluating. He's a new client. And as he passed by, I think I recognized him. I think so. I'm not sure. There he goes again. But I'm not sure. But he could be a repeat. He could be a retread. So all of those, we're evaluating all of those. And if he is, what happened? All of those. And I'm saying we, that's me. I'm doing all those evaluations. But we do that all the time, and people do that to us all the time. So we don't need to disqualify the positive. So if he is a repeat and all of that stuff, what's positive about that?
It's in a place for
Yes. Something obviously happened. That's the negative. The positive is here he is right here. He's ready to start back. And that's a good positive. So he chose the best place in the world to come to. So that's a real good positive. So we don't need to get rid of that. You might receive a lot of compliments on that evaluation. You might see people might tell you a lot of good things. But the thing that sticks with us more than anything else is going to be the negative. So instead, and look, this is something I really want to do in my life. I want to disqualify the negative. It's better for me to do that than it is to disqualify the positive. I need to be looking at the negative and say, that's just nothing. That's just a little bit. But if I disqualify the negative, I can get rid of that one little bitty thing, and then I can better qualify all of the positive. And that's going to work out better for me. So if I can qualify the positive when I get out of treatment and life starts to slap me around a little bit, right? Then I don't necessarily need or allow that to lead me back into relapse at all. That's what it's all about. We need to get all of these thought patterns and everything to a place where we can do that. Then we have should statements. How many people know that we use a lot of should statements?
A lot.
Yeah, me
Should have
too.
done this, should have done that, should have, could have, would have.
Yeah, that's what Ms. Clinton said. She got caught doing a whole bunch of illegal stuff, and they said you shouldn't have been doing that. She said shoulda, woulda, coulda. All right then. Okay. You know, that's true, but we do a lot of that kind of stuff. And should statements, the belief that things should be a certain way. I should be perfect. Not going to ever work like that? No. No. I know a gentleman who's perfect. He's not here. He's not one of us. Yeah. But I do know a guy that's perfect. I should be perfect. Everyone should love me. How about if something is dangerous? I should be afraid of it. So if something's dangerous, you shouldn't be afraid of it? You should be.
I'm sorry.
You should be afraid of it. If it's, how about rattling snakes? Are rattling snakes dangerous?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, rattling snakes are dangerous. Are you scared of rattling snakes?
Not really. I'm scared of enough that I know not to mess with.
Well, let me ask you a real pertinent question. How many rattling snakes are right here, right now?
None.
So I don't have to worry about rattling snakes. Not right now. If you go down, I lived down in South Texas for a couple of years, and when you're down there, if you're not scared of rattlesnakes, you have to be very cognizant of rattlesnakes. They're everywhere. That's right.
This is kind of off subject, but do you know what a rattlesnake venom does to your blood?
Yes.
What?
It turns it into mush.
Turns it into jello.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I thought that was the weirdest thing when I found that out.
It's not good for you.
Yep.
So he asked, what does rattlesnake venom do to your blood? And it turns it into a kind of jelly, mushy stuff, and
Heart can't pump it.
Heart can't pump it. It can't do its job and all of that kind of stuff. So that's why you have to go to the doctor if you get rattling snake.
So don't they have that anti-venom?
They do.
Yeah.
They do have
Yeah,
they do. That's why you rush to the hospital and go in there and tell that guy, hey, look, I've been rattling snake bit. And they give you a shot. They make that stuff from the snake's venom, and it's pretty good. Another thing is all or nothing thinking. And I will tell you, this is the last one of these cognitive distortions. That doesn't mean that that's the last one that there is. That means that's the last one we have on our study today. But all or nothing thinking, what does that mean?
As in thinking of it all, or not thinking of it at all?
Yeah. Means if I can't win all of the $1 billion for myself, I don't want to win any of it. I don't want to do that. You know, if I can't be the president, I'm not going to be JD. I'm going to be the vice president. You know, all or nothing. When I came over here, now on the 3rd of this month, last 3rd, today's the 8th, isn't it? The 3rd, I had been here 1 year, and I told my boss, I've been here 1 year. There were no parties. There were no cakes or cookies. There were no raises. There were nothing like that. It's just okay. You've been here a year. Yeah. Congratulations. Go back to work. All of that kind of stuff. Um, but when I came here, I hired on to be a director, and they said, "You can't be a director." Well, that's what I'm qualified to do. So what I want to do. They said, "Well, you're going to be instead of that. We need you to do this." So now, above that, additional that. But you got to be willing to start where you can start, and then go where they'll let you go. So all or nothing means I'm going to have it all, or I'm not going to take anything. And all or nothing thinking means thinking in absolutes, such as always. Always going to do this. Is always going to happen. Never or ever. Those are always absolutes, right? That's the only way you can use that term. Because we say this never happens. Is that the truth? I never get this. Is that the truth? No. So we got to be careful about those kinds of things. I never do a good enough job on anything. Is that true? Now there's some people out there that their job that they do is not usually much good. I've had people work for me that were just not a very good hand. But every now and then something would come across pretty well. So saying I never do that, that's something we shouldn't have in our vocabulary. We shouldn't be saying I never do well. We also should never be saying stuff like I always fail. So never and always, those we need to be very limited in the use of either one of them. When I'm going to use the word never, I take a really good close look at what I'm saying before I use that word. Or if I say always, I do the same thing. I want to make sure that that word is appropriate. Because most of the time when I'm using the word never or always, it's not. Because most of the time, I don't never do whatever I say I'm about to never do. Because the other day somebody, I think it was Mr. Farmer, said, "Well, I've never heard Dr. Garner use profanity." And, I said, "Well, I never, stop myself." Because sometimes I do. There are some things, I don't use profanity a lot, but I will tell you this, there's a thing called Christian cussing. There's some things we use. Dadgummit, dang naked. We'll use something, means the same thing. It's the same thing, except just not an accepted term. So we don't need to be doing that. So all of these things are cognitive distortions. These are things that will cause us to think worse of ourselves, worse of other people, and will cause us to have some issues with our emotions. And this whole week's going to be about emotions, so tomorrow we'll be talking about something else. I do want to go over this real quickly. We don't have a lot of time, but there is one of the emotions that we get into, one of the things that causes us a whole lot of problems is depression. And so I want us to know that we need to be working to get ourselves out of that place of depression, right? Why do we need to work at getting out of depression so succinctly, so quickly? Why do we need to try not to be in depression?
Not otherwise should be a gateway to go off and
depression can be a gateway of getting yourself into drugs, alcohol, getting into trouble, losing jobs,
pretty much everything.
Not wanting to be with family members.
All those.
I suffer from it.
All of those negative things. Okay, we're really going to get into depression. We're going to be looking at several different emotions down through the week. We're going to talk about depression tomorrow. We're going to get into the cycle of depression, and everybody's going to get a little sheet for tomorrow to make sure that you get one of these, and the ladies get one of these as well. So I'll be bringing you guys a copy of the cycle of depression for tomorrow. But one of the things that I want us to know that today, that's going to be tomorrow, but one of the things I want us to know today is if when we find ourselves getting into that place of depression, what do we do? How do we get out?
Disqualify the negative.
Disqualify the negative. I like that. That's good stuff. So we can disqualify the negative. So what that means is that we get to a place where we stop being negative. We stop looking at the negative and look at the positive, right? So, all right, somebody read that real quick.
Positive self-talk.
Positive self-talk.
Oh,
I want us to be positive in our thought life, thinking positive thoughts about me, positive thoughts about everybody else, positive stuff about my recovery, positive stuff about where I am and what's going on in my life right now. Just being positive, but how's the best way for me to remain positive?
Pray.
Pray is good. Yeah, I pray.
We're the same.
Being the same type of people. Yes, sir. I pray every day. Look, if I'm around somebody who is absolutely just negative all the time, I'm not going to be around those people very long. I'm not going to hang out with negative people because negativity is catching. It's catching. It is contagious. So if you're hanging out with some negative people right now, guess what? You will be negative before you know it. And one of the things I try to catch every time I can is negative self-talk. And I get a lot of that. I hear people say evil, nasty, stupid things about themselves. And that's not who you are. So we need to, one of the ways to get us out of a depressive place, out of depression, anxiety, and all of those things, and it's really, really, really simplistic. I know that. But it's the simple things are the best things when it comes to working for us. You know, it does not have to be complicated. Simplicity works miracle. So simply using positive self-talk is one of the greatest antidotes to depression you're ever going to find. So if I'm talking to myself and I'm telling myself, look, you can start at a very low level. I'm not all that bad. And I'm not all that bad. I'm a pretty good guy. I'm a good husband. I'm a good father. I'm a good friend. I'm a good counselor. All of those things. I say those things to myself. I want to be better in all of those areas. I also want to be a better pastor. But I'm a pretty good one. And I want to be a better teacher and a better preacher. And I want to be better at all of those things. But at this point in time, I'm pretty good at every bit of that. So is that bragging?
Oh, no.
It's telling the truth. Also, when I'm doing positive self-talk, if I don't believe that I am what I'm saying, then what I'm telling you is not a lie. It's a goal that I have for my life. If I'm not a very good father, and I want to be a very good dad, I'm going to continue to say I'm a good dad because that's my goal for my life, is to be a good dad or a good mom. All right, we're going to quit just a little bit early, and I will see you tomorrow, and we will begin with the cycle of depression and learn how to